If you had $1, quizzed the teacher, and you asked your father for another $1.50, how much money would you have? $1, answered little Johnny. You don't know your basic math, said the teacher, shaking her head, disappointed. Little Johnny shook his head too. You don't know my dad. A lady hired a handyman and gave him a list of 6 jobs she wanted done. She left and came back in the evening as the handyman was finishing up. She looked around and did not see all 6 jobs finished. On my list, sir, you only did number 1, 3, and 5. Why did you not do all 6 jobs? He said, Lady, I told you I only do odd jobs. Little Jimmy is getting his school bag ready for tomorrow when he hears his father say something strange from his room. Shocked and confused, Jimmy finds it hard to sleep that night. The next morning at breakfast, Jimmy keeps giving his dad nervous glances. His dad's just sitting there with a huge grin on his face. Jimmy heads to school and sits in class. During roll call, the teacher suddenly hears a loud meow from Jimmy's desk. She walks over and asks, Jimmy, why did you bring your cat to school? Jimmy looks up innocently and says, Because last night my dad said, I'm going to pound that kitty so hard when the boy leaves tomorrow. By the time I finish all that, I'm completely worn out. Who has the energy for anything else? A good laugh or even a smile to start the day, it's the best kind of workout. A Mexican man who didn't speak any English walked into a department store hoping to buy a pair of socks. He made his way to the men's section where a friendly saleswoman approached. Quiero calcetines, he said politely. She smiled, puzzled. Sorry, I don't speak Spanish, but take a look at our latest suits. No quiero trajes. Quiero calcetines, he said again, pointing to his feet. Oh, maybe you'd like a nice shirt. They're on sale. No camisas. Calcetines, he insisted, growing more desperate. Well, how about pants, right this way? No pantalones. Calcetinis, he said, now clearly frustrated. She gestured toward sweaters. These just came in. No sweater. Calcetinis. Trying one more time, she pointed to undershirts. Maybe one of these? The man shook his head. No camisetas. Solo calcetines. Suddenly, he spotted the sock display and lit up with joy. He grabbed a pair, held them up, and said proudly, Eso sí que es. The saleswoman's eyes widened. Well, why didn't you spell it out from the beginning? My doctor said I needed to get more exercise. So I shared my daily workout routine. I jumped to conclusions, climb the walls, drag my heels, push my luck, make mountains out of molehills, bend over backward, run around in circles, put my foot in my mouth, go over the edge, and beat around the bush. 3 cheeky grandmas were sitting on a bench outside their retirement home, enjoying the sunshine and swapping stories. Just then, an old gentleman shuffled by, cane in hand. One of the grandmas called out, Hey there! We bet we can guess exactly how old you are. The old man laughed. No chance, you ladies must be losing it. Oh, come on, said another granny. Just humor us. Drop your pants, spin around, and jump a bit. We'll tell you your age, spot on. Curious and confident they'd be wrong, he did as asked. Pants down, twirls, a few bounces. The grannies looked him over carefully, nodded, and said in perfect sync, You're 87. Shocked, the old man gasped, How in the world did you guess that? They burst out laughing and said, We were at your birthday party yesterday. A doctor and a lawyer are chatting at a party, just trying to relax. But every 5 minutes, someone interrupts the doctor. Can you look at this rash? My back's been killing me. Does this mole look weird? After an hour of free checkups, the doctor sighs and asks the lawyer, How do you deal with people asking for free legal advice outside of work? The lawyer smirks. Simple. I give them advice, then I mail them a bill. The doctor blinks. You're joking. Not even a little. Inspired and mildly vengeful, the doctor decides to try it. The next day, he writes up bills for everyone who bugged him at the party. As he heads to the mailbox to send them off, he finds something already waiting for him, a bill from the lawyer. A boy came home from school and told his mother he had been given a part in the school play. "Wonderful," said his mother. "What part is it?" The boy grinned. "I play the part of the husband." The mother scowled and said, "Go back and tell your teacher you want a speaking part." A man is in a hotel lobby. He wants to ask the clerk a question. As he turns to go to the front desk, he accidentally bumps into a woman beside him, and as he does, his elbow goes into her breast. They are both quite startled. The man turns to her and says, "Ma'am, if your heart is as soft as your breast, I know you'll forgive me." She replies, "If your penis is as hard as your elbow, I'm in room 436. A man was hunting when a gust of wind blew. The gun fell over and discharged, shooting him in the Several hours later, lying in a hospital bed, he was approached by his doctor. "Well, sir, I have some good news and some bad news. The good news is that you are going to be okay. The damage was local to your groin, there was very little internal damage, and we were able to remove all of the buckshot." "What's the bad news?" asked the hunter. "The bad news is that there was some pretty extensive buckshot damage done to your which left quite a few holes in it. I'm going to have to refer you to my sister." "Well, I guess that isn't too bad," the hunter replied. "Is your sister a plastic surgeon?" "Not exactly," answered by the doctor. "She's a flute player in the Boston Symphony Orchestra. She's going to teach you where to put your fingers so you don't wee in your eye." The other day, my daughter sent me yet another email, urging me to put my free time to better use. "Why don't you try something more meaningful with your day?" she suggested. I chuckled and replied, "What's wrong with lounging in the sun with a cold drink? That's plenty meaningful to me." But she wasn't backing down. She told me she was just concerned about my well-being and suggested I try socializing at the local senior center. So I decided to have a little fun with her. Later that evening, I wrote her back and said, "You know, you're right. I joined a new club today, the skydiving club." Her reply was almost instant. "Skydiving? Seriously? At your age?" I couldn't resist. I told her I'd already received my membership card and sent her a photo of it. Seconds later, she called, sounding both confused and worried. "Dad, do you even have your glasses on? That's not a skydiving club card. It says Exotic Dance Club." "Oh dear," I replied, barely able to keep a straight face. "Well, that's a twist. I'm already signed up for 3 dances a week." She fell silent, probably trying to process the shock. After a long pause, she sighed, "You're impossible," and hung up. I spent the rest of the evening chuckling, knowing she'd be telling this story for years. Customer, we bought a computer from you yesterday and it won't turn on. Tech support. Press the big button. Customer, I have. Tech support. Try the cord at the back. Maybe it's disconnected? Customer, I'll get a flashlight. Don't go away. Tech support. Why do you need a flashlight? Customer, it's dark. The power is out. An all-boys high school teacher was doing the attendance roll call one morning. She went through the list of names and each student replied, "Yes, miss," as their name was called. "James?" "Yes, miss," replied James. "Is Robert here?" "Yes, miss," replied Robert. "Jack?" After about 5 seconds of silence, Jack hadn't replied. The teacher continued, "Jack off today?" The whole class in unison, "Okay, we will, miss." The priest's missing bicycle. A small town priest went to the mayor complaining, "Someone stole my bicycle." The wise mayor responded, "Fear not. There is an easy way to find it. All you need to do is to read the 10 Commandments in front of the whole congregation next Sunday." When you reach "Thou shalt not steal," make a dramatic pause. Then look everyone in the eyes. The one avoiding eye contact is surely guilty. The next week they meet again, this time the priest riding his bicycle with a huge grin on his face. "So the plan worked?" asked the mayor. "Well, in a way. I started reading the commandments like you suggested me to do. When I reached "Thou shalt not commit adultery," I remembered where I had left it. Today, I sat down to rest for 5 minutes. I barely sat down when the phone rings. "Mom, where are you?" "I'm right here, sitting." "Good. Because Grandma says you fell." "I didn't fall, I sat." "Well, Grandma says you fell like 2 minutes ago." "Yeah, well, Grandma was looking through closed blinds. While I'm trying to explain that I sat and didn't fall, the dog freaks out thinking I'm crying, jumps in my lap, spills my coffee on my pajamas, and my husband runs in yelling, 'Who fell?' In the end, everyone was comforting me, and all I wanted was to sit for 5 minutes. Getting older isn't for the weak, and apparently not for sitting either. Judge asks, "Sir, can you explain why this woman beat you in the elevator?" Old man replies, "Well, Your Honor, evidently I was staring at her. You know, her breath, when she said, 'Would you please press one?' So I did. I don't remember much after that." A police officer attempts to stop a biker for speeding, but the biker gradually increases his speed until he's going over 100 mph. Eventually, the biker realizes he can't escape and pulls over. The cop approaches and says, "It's been a long day, and my shift is almost over. If you can give me a good excuse for your behavior, I'll let you go." The biker thinks for a few seconds and then says, "My wife ran away with a cop about a week ago. I thought you might be that officer trying to return her." At a wedding ceremony, the priest asked if anyone had anything to say concerning the union of the bride and groom. It was their time to stand up and talk, or forever hold their peace. The moment of utter silence was broken by a young, beautiful woman carrying a child. She started walking toward the pastor slowly. Everything quickly turned to chaos. The bride slapped the groom. The groom's mother fainted. The groomsmen started giving each other looks and wondering how best to help save the situation. The priest asked the woman, "Can you tell us why you came forward? What do you have to say?" The woman replied, "We can't hear in the back." A man was pulled over for speeding, and before the officer could say a word, the driver jumped out and said, "Officer, please, can I explain before you write the ticket?" The cop nodded. "Go ahead." The man pointed toward the car. "See the woman in the front seat? That's my wife. And the one in the back? That's my mother-in-law. She's been staying with us for 3 long months. This morning," the man continued, "they had a massive argument. My mother-in-law said she's had enough and wants to go back to her own house. So now I'm driving like my life depends on it, before they calm down and she changes her mind." The officer looked at the car, then back at the man. "Sir," he said, "get back in your car. I'm giving you a full police escort. Let's not take any chances." Returning home from work, a young woman was shocked to find that her house had been ransacked and burglarized. She telephoned the police at once and reported the crime. The police dispatcher broadcast the call on the channels, and a K-9 unit patrolling nearby was the first to respond, as the K-9 officer approached the house with his dog on a leash. The blonde woman ran out on the porch and shuddered at the sight of the cop and his dog. Then she sat down on the steps, put her face in her hands, and moaned, "I came home to find all my possessions stolen. I called the police for help. And what do? They send me a blind policeman." Unable to attend the funeral after his Uncle Charlie died, a man who lived far away called his blonde brother and told him, "Do something nice for Uncle Charlie and then send me the bill." Later, he got a bill for $200, which he paid. The next month, he got another bill for $200, which he also paid, figuring it was some incidental expense. But when the $200 bills kept arriving every month, he finally called his brother again to find out what was going on. "Well," said the blonde brother. "You said to do something nice for Uncle Charlie, so I rented him a tuxedo." The other day, a friend of mine got the surprise of her life. A police car pulled into her driveway. And who stepped out? Her 82-year-old grandfather, cool as a cucumber. The officer smiled and explained that he'd found Grandpa sitting on a park bench, looking a bit confused. He had asked for a ride home because he couldn't quite find his way. Concerned, my friend ran up and said, "Grandpa, you've walked that park for decades. How did you get lost today?" Grandpa gave her a little grin and said, "Oh, I wasn't lost. I just got tired and figured I'd let someone else do the walking for once." Classic Grandpa. Sharp as ever, just a little smarter and sneakier with age. Some folks slow down with time. Others just learn how to work smarter, not harder. One day, a teacher was greeting his new class. He stood up in front of the class and said, "Would anyone who thinks he or she isn't smart enough for third grade please stand up?" After a minute or so, one boy stood up. "Well, hello there. So you don't think you're smart enough for this grade?" the teacher asked. The kid replied, "No, sir. I just felt bad that you were standing there all by yourself." A judge was interviewing a woman regarding her pending divorce and asked, "What are the grounds for your divorce?" She replied, "About 4 acres and a nice little home in the middle of the property with a stream running by." "No," he said. "I mean, what is the foundation of this case?" "It is made of concrete, brick, and mortar," she responded. "I mean," he continued, "what are your relations like?" "I have an aunt and uncle living here in town, and so do my husband's parents." He said, "Do you have a real grudge?" "No," she replied. "We have a 2-car carport and have never really needed one." "Please," he tried again, "is there any infidelity in your marriage?" "Yes, both my son and daughter have stereo sets. We don't necessarily like the music, but the answer to your questions is yes." "Ma'am, does your husband ever beat you up?" "Yes," she responded. "About twice a week he gets up earlier than I do." Finally, in frustration, the judge asked, "Lady, why do you want a divorce?" "Oh, I don't want a divorce," she replied. "I've never wanted a divorce. My husband does. He said he can't communicate with me." Two ladies were working on a house. One of them was nailing down siding. She'd reach into her nail pouch, pull out a nail, and either hammer it in or toss it over her shoulder. The other lady, curious, finally asked, "Why do you keep throwing some of those nails away?" The first one replied, "Well, if I pull out a nail and it's pointed toward me, I toss it. Obviously, it's defective. But if it's pointed toward the house, I nail it in." The second lady smacked her forehead and shouted, "You idiot! The ones pointed toward you aren't defective. They're for the other side of the house." Two priests decided to take a much-needed break from their parish duties and booked a tropical getaway to sunny Hawaii. But before the plane even took off, they made a pact. "No collars, no black clothes. We're going full tourist mode." Once they landed, they hit a beach shop and loaded up on colorful shirts, floral shorts, flip-flops, straw hats, and sunglasses the size of dinner plates. They looked more like cruise ship mascots than clergymen. The next morning, they strolled along the beach, sipping fruit smoothies and enjoying the sun, completely relaxed and totally incognito. Then suddenly, a stunning blonde in a bikini walked by, flashed a smile, and said, "Good morning, Father. Good morning, Father." They nearly dropped their drinks. How on earth did she know? Determined not to be recognized again, they returned to the shops that afternoon and cranked up the disguise. Neon tank tops, goofy socks with sandals, seashell necklaces, and hats that said, "Aloha, dude." They looked ridiculous and completely unpriest-like. The next day, back on the beach, they strutted confidently, sure their cover was solid, but wouldn't you know it, the same blonde passed by, waved, and said with a grin, "Good morning again, fathers." One of them stood up and said, "All right, we give up. How did you know we were priests?" She chuckled. took off her sunglasses and said, "It's me, Sister Mary from the convent. You two are terrible at hiding." Little Danny thinks he's too smart for first grade, and he might be right. A first grade teacher had her hands full with one of her students, little Danny. He was sharp, confident, and always had something to say. One day, after correcting her on long division, with crayons no less, she asked, "Danny, what's going on?" He looked her dead in the eye and said, "I'm bored. I'm smarter than this class. Honestly, I'm smarter than my sister, and she's in third grade." The teacher, not wanting to argue with a 6-year-old genius, took him to the principal's office. After hearing the story, the principal said, "All right, let's give Danny a test. If he misses just one question, back to first grade he goes." Deal. Principal: "What's 7 and 5? Danny: 35. "What's the capital of France?" Danny: "Paris." "How many inches in a foot?" Danny: 12. After 20 minutes of rapid-fire questions, the principal leaned back, impressed. "This kid knows more than some teachers I've interviewed," he chuckled. "I think he's ready for third grade." But the teacher wasn't done. "May I ask a few questions of my own?" She smiled. Principal agreed. Danny nodded, cocky as ever. Teacher: "What has 4 legs in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and 3 at night?" Danny: "A human being. That's an old riddle." "What do you have in your pockets that I don't?" Danny: "Snacks, and probably Legos." "What makes a man take off his jacket, pants, and shoes before going to bed?" Danny: "A long day." "And what starts with F, ends in K, and if you don't get it, you're in trouble?" The principal's eyes went wide. Danny grinned and answered, "Homework." The principal stood up, cleared his throat, and said, "Put this kid in the 5th grade. He's got brains and nerves of steel." When Harold and Betty moved to Texas, Harold was determined to embrace his inner cowboy. So when he found a flashy pair of cowboy boots on sale, he bought them faster than you could say, "Yeehaw." Strutting into the kitchen in his new kicks, chest out and ego bigger than a Texas steak, he asked, "Notice anything different, darling?" Betty glanced over her teacup. "New attitude?" Not satisfied, Harold disappeared into the bathroom, ditched everything but the boots, and reappeared buck naked, hands on hips like a rodeo champion. "How about now?" he asked, grinning. Betty looked him up and down, took a sip of tea, and said, "Whatever was sagging yesterday is still sagging today." Annoyed, Harold snapped, "It's sagging because it's admiring my boots." Without missing a beat, Betty replied, "Next time, Harold, buy a hat." 2 tall trees, a birch and a beech, are growing in the woods. A small tree begins to grow between them, and the beech says to the birch, "Is that a son of a beech or a son of a birch?" The birch says he cannot tell, but just then a woodpecker lands on the sapling. The birch says, "Woodpecker, you are a tree expert. Can you tell if that is a son of a beech or a son of a birch?" The woodpecker takes a taste of the small tree and replies, "It is neither a son of a beech nor a son of a birch. It is, however, the best piece of ash I have ever poked my pecker into. Now wipe that smile off your face." 3 bulls heard the farmer was bringing another bull onto the farm. First bull: "I've been here 5 years. I'm not giving this new bull any of my 100 cows. Second bull: "I've been here 3 years and have earned my right to 50 cows. I'm keeping all of my cows." Third bull: "I've only been here a year, and so far, you guys have only let me have 10 cows. I may not be as big as you fellows, but I'm keeping all 10 of my cows." Just then, an 18-wheeler pulls up in the pasture carrying the biggest Brahman bull they've ever seen. At 30,600 pounds, each step he takes strains the steel ramp. First bull: "I think I can spare a few cows for our new friend." Second bull: I actually have too many cows to take care of. I can spare a few. I'm certainly not looking for an argument. They look over at the third bull and find him pawing the dirt, shaking his horns and snorting. First bull, "Son, don't be foolish. Let him have some of your cows and live to tell about it." Third bull, "He can have all my cows. I'm just making sure he knows I'm a bull." A blonde lady motorist was about 2 hours from San Diego when she was flagged down by a man whose truck had broken down. The man walked up to the car and asked, "Are you going to San Diego?" "Sure," answered the blonde. "Do you need a lift?" "Not for me. I'll be spending the next 3 hours fixing my truck. My problem is I've got 2 chimpanzees in the back that have to be taken to the San Diego Zoo. They're a bit stressed already, so I don't want to keep them on the road all day. Could you possibly take them to the San Diego Zoo for me? I'll give you $200 for your trouble." "I'd be happy to," said the blonde. So the 2 chimpanzees were ushered into the back seat of the blonde's car and carefully strapped into their seatbelts, and off they went. 5 hours later, the truck driver was driving through the heart of San Diego when suddenly he was horrified. There was the blonde walking down the street, holding hands with the 2 chimps, much to the amusement of a big crowd. With a screech of brakes, he pulled off the road and ran over to the blonde. "What are you doing here?" he demanded. "I gave you $200 to take these chimpanzees to the zoo." "Yes, I know you did," said the blonde. "But we had money left over, so now we're going to SeaWorld." As Forrest Gump approaches the pearly gates, St. Peter greets him with a warm smile. "Ah, welcome, Mr. Gump. We've been expecting you." Forrest nods politely, taking in the grand scene before him. "Before I let you into heaven, I just need you to answer 3 simple questions. Sound good?" Forrest shrugs. "All right." St. Peter clears his throat. First question. How many seconds are in a year? Forrest thinks for a moment, then confidently replies, 12. St. Peter blinks. 12? You really think there are only 12 seconds in an entire year? Explain. Forrest grins. Well, there's January 2nd, February 2nd, March 2nd, April 2nd. St. Peter sighs, rubbing his temples. All right. I guess that's technically correct. Forrest beams. Next question, St. Peter continues. How many days of the week start with the letter T? Forrest furrows his brow, deep in thought. After a moment, he replies, 4. St. Peter nearly chokes. 4? How do you figure that? Forrest calmly explains, well, you got Tuesday, Thursday, today, and tomorrow. St. Peter's jaw drops. Okay, I suppose that's also technically correct. Forrest grins even wider. All right, last question, St. Peter says, bracing himself. What is God's real name? Forrest scratches his head, thinking hard. Beads of sweat form on his forehead. Then suddenly his eyes light up. With absolute certainty, he declares, Andy. God's name is Andy. St. Peter throws his hands up. Andy? How in heaven's name did you come up with that? Forrest gives him a knowing look and says, like the song says, Andy walks with me, Andy talks with me. St. Peter stares for a moment, then sighs. Welcome to heaven, Mr. Gump. To heaven. A duck waddles into a convenience store and strolls up to the counter. Got any grapes? He asks. The clerk shakes his head. Nope, no grapes here. The duck quacks a quick, thanks, and waddles out. The next day, the duck returns. Got any grapes? The clerk sighs. No, I told you yesterday. We don't sell grapes. The duck shrugs and waddles away. On the third day, the duck is back again. Got any grapes? Now the clerk is fuming. Listen, buddy, you've asked me 3 days in a row, and I keep telling you, no grapes. If you ask me again, I'll nail your little webbed feet to the floor. The duck blinks, nods, and waddles out. The next day, the duck returns. He eyes the clerk and asks, "Got any nails?" The clerk, still annoyed, grumbles, "No, we don't have nails." The duck grins. "Good. Got any grapes?" Three boys are hanging out in the schoolyard, boasting about their dads. The first boy says, "My dad scribbles a few words on a piece of paper, calls it a poem, and they pay him $50. The second boy smirks and replies, "That's nothing. My dad writes a few lines on paper, calls it a song, and they hand him $100. The third boy grins and says, "Oh, I've got you both beat. My dad jots down a few words, calls it a sermon, and it takes 8 people just to collect all the money." Three sons left home, said farewell to their beloved single mother, and went on to build successful lives for themselves. Years later, they reunited and reminisced about the extravagant gifts they had given their mother for her birthday, each hoping to outdo the others with their thoughtfulness. The first son said, "I built Mom a mansion, 26 rooms, a massive backyard with trees and flowers. It's a palace fit for a queen, giving her all the space she never had." The second son said, "Well, I got her a luxury car, but not just any car. It comes with a private driver to take her anywhere she wants. She'll never have to drive again, and he'll even carry her groceries." The third son grinned and said, "I've got you both beat. You know how much Mom loved reading the Bible, but her eyesight isn't great anymore. So I sent her an incredible parrot that recites the entire Bible. It took the church elders 12 years to train him. All Mom has to do is say a chapter and verse, and the parrot recites it perfectly." The brothers felt proud, confident that their mother would be thrilled with their gifts. A few weeks later, she sent out her thank you letters. "Milton," she wrote to her first son, "the house is beautiful, but I only use one room, and now I have to clean the entire mansion. Gerald," she wrote to her second son, "I hardly go anywhere these days. My eyesight isn't great, and to be honest, the driver is quite rude. Dearest Donald," she wrote to her third son, "you, my boy, truly understand what your mother likes. That chicken was delicious."